Welcome to Beerfield Fantasy Football. I'm pretty sure I kept Dan in more suspense than I've ever kept Dan in trying to get this show started because it wasn't a double click and go. I had to do like 3 extra things. But yeah, welcome to the Wednesday episode. I am at Hot BFF with 2 P's, as always, joined by Thury BFF with 2 F's from Springfield, Illinois. Dan?
What's going on? I'm just showing off my fancy trophy that I won last year in one of my home leagues. I finally was able to go get it, and by me go get it, I mean by Katrina when she got me dinner was given my trophy.
Went and got it from Yanni's.
Yeah, so
nice.
That was a fun surprise.
Nice. All right, well, we hope that there's plenty more trophies in everybody's future. This is Beerfield Fantasy Football. Like I said, you can follow us on Twitter, BeerfieldFF, YouTube, Beerfield Fantasy Football. You could have seen Dan's pretty trophy there, watch us drink, all the shenanigans and the antics, catch the Sunday live shows, and all sorts of other fun stuff there. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification button. We got a normal Wednesday gamut of stuff for you. We got news and injury updates, obviously, start sits, you call it, beer, all that fun stuff. But before we get started, wanted to toss out a little bit of a bonus content here. So Dan and I kind of were snipping each other's asses on making trades over the last couple days. So, and Dan and I obviously in a ton of leagues together. We're kind of teams that tend to trade more with teams than other people. We're obvious trade partners because we both have similar valuations on players, feel like we're going to get fair value, and understand needs and wants at that point in time. So going to try to work a couple of those out on air here, I think. So got a dynasty trade we're going to talk through, a redraft trade we're going to talk to. Before we do that, though, I'd like to go ahead and preview beer, because trading when you're drinking is a lot better than trading when you're not drinking.
Hell yeah.
So let's go ahead and preview beer, and then we'll get into that.
What's fueling Beerfield?
All right, Dan, what do you got?
All right, so just for a quick recap, I lost last week's start sit stuff challenge that we've been doing every week so far, and my punishment was to pick out a craft beer that is not of the style that I prefer, and it's something that I haven't had before. So if you've been listening to the show for as long as you possibly can, you have heard my rumbles and grumbles on Belgian styles and saisons. So I found a beer that has both. It's Unkbrau's Atelier Monde. Wow, that's a lot of fucking words. They did their collaboration with the metal band Megadeth. Clocks in at 4.5%. It's a Belgian-inspired saison, and on first sip, it's gonna be a long one.
So for those of you watching on YouTube, this is literally gonna say words I can't spell. We normally go through this beforehand for the on-screen graphic. I'm not even gonna try, and I'm not even gonna make him spell that out on air. We're just gonna call it a Belgian saison collab with Megadeth and words I can't spell.
That stands bad.
Yeah, no, that's my bad for not asking, and I'm just not even going to try. Don't have that level of effort in me today. All right. As for me, I said we were going to do a few weeks of a cellar series for me, because quite honestly, I need the cabinet space. So, I'm going to do this series like Dan did his Oktoberfest series earlier in the year, and this week we're drinking Dankwood. Dankwood's a barrel-aged red IPA from Founders Brewing, and this particular one was bottled April 10th of 2018. So this has been sitting in my cabinet for probably a year and a half. It is a red IPA, which if you listen to last week's episode where we went over the merits of aging barrel-aged stuff, good. Aging IPAs, typically not good. So it'll be interesting to see how this turned out after sitting down there for that long. Initial reaction is good, though, so we'll have a full review of that as we get about halfway through the episode, as well as Dan's Megadeth Belgian saison.
I'm really interested to hear on I love Dankwood. I believe we had it on last year.
I think we did.
So I'm really interested to hear the changing notes after,
quite honestly,
18 months.
This may be the leftover from that packet.
It might be.
It very well could be. I have no idea. So I just am reaching down there and literally grabbing the first bottle my hand hits.
That's awesome.
And for just to set the picture, it's this old china cabinet that I took and redid with all sorts of labels and can art and stuff like that. And there's a cabinet on the bottom of it, and half of that cabinet is a bourbon stash, which is even bigger than the last time Dan was down here. And the other half is all cellaring beers. And it's pretty full, so I got to clean out some space.
Awesome.
All right, let's go ahead and quick talk some trades. If we can't work something out here, we haven't talked about any of this preemptively. If we can't work something out, we're not going to drag this out. Let's go ahead and start with Dynasty. So to set the stage, Dan and I are in a home Dynasty league together, and I have a team that is rebuilding. It competed in year 1, competed in year 2, and then given injuries and player age and regression and things like that, I am no longer a contending team. So we've gone full-on tank mode this year, and that doesn't mean I'm not putting out the best lineup I possibly can. I absolutely am putting out the best lineup that I possibly can, given the players that I have, which is how you appropriately tank, but definitely in need of some retooling. And I've got some older players that are flashing again that I am looking to sell to Dan, who is a contending team, that... This sounds like I'm setting up for a really bad role play, and I promise this is actually what's going on. To Dan, who is a contending team that needs running back help because of the performance of Joe Mixon this year.
Yeah, so I'm the reigning champion. This is the league that I run. To set the stage even further, I did trade for Le'Veon Bell this morning with another league mate. They kind of help with the running back depth. I do have Dalvin Cook, so it's not like I'm hurting for a start or I'm hurting for a number 1. But I needed a number 2 that I can trust. Basically, what we're going for is the player in question is Carlos Hyde. And this is to kind of give me a little bit more depth because behind Cook, Mixon, and Bell is an oft-injured Chris Thompson and the ever so mediocre Jag player, Peyton Barber.
Buck.
Yeah. Fucking Buck.
Yeah, well, you said Jag.
I say Jag as the term just
just another guy. Sorry, yes, Jag, not Jags. Yep. And Carlos Hyde for me on a rebuilding team. Carlos Hyde, the guy I traded for in year 1 when I was making a title run when he was with San Francisco and having his good year that I could plug and play as an RB2. Now he's kind of having a resurgence in Kansas City, so I'm entering what very well may be his last Carlos Hyde. Houston, sorry. What very well may be Carlos Hyde's last sell window. I need to get out of Carlos Hyde for something, right? Because otherwise, he's just probably going to end up getting cut here in a couple of years for nothing or sitting in my roster waiting for that other window. So Dan recently acquired an extra 4th-round pick, and what I'm looking at here is Carlos Hyde for a 4th-rounder, which is not high draft capital in a 12-team league, especially when Dan has the extra one, as well as... Let's see, whose 4th-rounder did you get? Was it Sean's?
I got Sean's.
You got Sean's. So
Sean is a middling. Sean is a very interesting team. He's 5-2, but he doesn't want to win games,
right?
Which has not been his forte. I've made multiple trades with him. I have like half of his good players, so this could turn into a high 4th. More than likely, the top 3 teams, which is including Hopper's team, is likely set, and most people were playing for 4th place. They're trying to tank as well.
Right. So, and I have accidentally won 1 game. Thank you, Bears defense. So, looking Carlos Hyde for a 4th-rounder and maybe a little dart throw of sweetness on top. A player that hasn't performed, but may have the potential to at some point. So, looking at your roster, Dan, some guys that come to mind that are younger that I'd be potentially interested in. You've got Deion Kane and Tony Pollard. Obviously, that's your future right there. Albert Wilson's a guy that could be considered a dart throw. Hayden Hurst is another one. Not that I need any more dart throw tight ends. That is something I've pretty well got covered is dart throw tight ends.
Yes, you do.
Hakeem Butler and Isaiah Crowell both sitting on IR. So is there any of those guys, in particular the younger guys like Kane, Pollard, Butler, that you would potentially be willing to throw in with the 4th-rounder for Carlos Hyde?
I will say this, and this doesn't this doesn't happen often. It's not just because we're on air. I think you could take your pick and which guy you want. I think all these guys are very much worth plus a fourth for Carlos Hyde.
Okay.
We're both getting what we want. I'm getting a rental piece for this year and maybe some value next year, and you are getting a potential value young piece that could help you in the future.
Yep, and for me, I'm a team that flipped Michael Thomas earlier this year, and turned that into. I think it would eventually ended up being Deebo Samuel, a first-round pick, and I think it eventually ended up being a first-rounder, Deebo Samuel and Will Dissly, that I turned that into. So,
yep.
I would say that's something I want to do. We can go Hyde for the fourth and Deion Kane. Is that something that sounds okay to you, or
that sounds completely fine?
Okay.
We will finalize.
We'll finalize that afterwards. Yeah, we won't sit here while we push buttons on ESPN. So
I mean, it won't take me long, but I'm just gonna write it down. So
sure. And then talking redraft. So I'll go ahead while you do that and set the stage in this redraft league. So in this redraft league, Dan and I are both competing teams, right? So I think we're both 4-3 right now.
Yes.
Yeah, we're both 4-3. I'm gonna pull the league up real quick. So
I got it up right now.
Yeah, we're both 4-3 in separate divisions. I'm at 761 points for. Dan's at 823. We're both sitting in. We're sitting third and fourth in our respective leagues. I have a glut of wide receivers. Dan has a glut of running backs. When you have two teams like that, you can help each other out. So to set that, my running back core a little weak. Marlon Mack, Tevin Coleman, Jordan Howard, Jamal Williams. Not terribly weak, but those guys you're kind of trying to play matchups and take a dart throw. You don't really have somebody that's plugged in. It's like a bunch of running back twos, and this is a 2-flex league as well. But at wide receiver, I've got Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, and Alshon Jeffrey. There's 4 wide receiver 1s to wide receiver 2s sitting there. For Dan, who's a team that's in need of wide receiver help, that's sitting with Dalvin Cook as his 1, Le'Veon Bell is his 2, we'll call it, as well as Chase Edmonds, Royce Freeman.
And Melvin Gordon and newly acquired Ty Johnson.
And Melvin Gordon. So, in this case, we'll knock it off right here. You're not looking to trade Dalvin Cook, I guarantee it, and I'm probably not looking to move right now off of Stephon Diggs. And the reason being is that Bell week in and week out is kind of meh. Cook is really going to be the best player on your team. And for me, Stephon Diggs and the way the Vikings passing offense has been fantastic, and he's really my most surefire wide receiver. Jeffrey's consistent, but he's not consistent with the upside that Diggs has. Evans has been kind of on and off again. Adams is hurt, right?
Yep.
So I'm looking at Alshon Jeffrey as my potential trade piece here because I think I can get value back for Alshon Jeffrey as far as a running back piece and potentially plug those other guys in. Adams would be another guy I'd potentially be looking at moving, but a little bit more pause there because of what Adams is when he's healthy, but you have the toe injury, so that's going to create pause from both sides. I would be looking at another kind of iffy performing player there and either Melvin Gordon, if you believe in the weak performance, or Bell for Jeffrey is a starting point.
I likely wouldn't do Bell for Jeffrey because Bell's matchups for the next about 6 weeks are about as good as they're going to come. He's got a difficult playoff schedule, but we're not 6-0 or 5-1, or we're not 7-0 or 6-1, so we're not looking too far ahead to playoffs. We're still vying for that wild card spot, so we have to look at more of a 2 to 3 week window instead of the rest of the season window. Gordon for Jeffrey is interesting, as both players have. Jeffrey has been consistent. Struggled a bit last week against Byron Jones, but everyone has struggled against Byron Jones this year. He has a difficult matchup this week as he face off against Buffalo and Tre'Davious White. Man, this one's a lot closer.
Do you like Evans a bit more than Jeffrey?
I like I think Evans is upside a little bit more.
Because Evans is another player I'd be willing to come off of. Adams, I don't really want to, just because the upside and boost he could potentially provide when he does come back. But
Yeah.
Evans and Jeffrey are two guys I'm looking at, and Evans is another guy that's kind of, we know has the upside, but has struggled, that I think fits the mold of what I'd be willing. So if you value Evans more than Jeffrey, that's also in play.
I probably would. I do have Amari Cooper, so I do have I have a fine one. I like what him and Dak have put together this year in Dallas. I guess my starting point would be, Gordon for Evans. You can talk other beyond details than that, but I think that would be where I'd be.
No,
a good
I think
starting
that's
point.
a trade that I'd probably be willing to make straight up, because I think you're dealing with two players that has both been top 5 guys in the past that just really haven't gotten it going, and you're looking for a second half turnaround out of both of them. You've got Godwin emerging in Tampa Bay, which is a threat to Evans. You've got Eckler, who's been great in Los Angeles, which is a threat to Gordon, and I think that those guys are pretty evenly valued at their position if you'd be looking at something like that straight up.
I think straight up is perfectly fine. It fits what we both want. We both get not a true number 1 for the team, but a solid number 2, number 3 that's got upside to be a 1 on any given week.
Yeah.
That could help change the fortunes of both teams.
Yep, and and this is one of those moves that it doesn't move player for player. It doesn't move the needle a whole lot. It's more of a positional need to where it moves the needle. You're getting a very, very high-end dart throw at wide receiver, which is a position where we could say you're not necessarily desperate, but you could definitely stand to improve. And it's the same thing at running back for me, getting a very, very high-end player that could turn around in the second half where I'm not desperate but could stand to improve. Neither team's firmly in playoff position. Neither team's out of it. You kind of need that upside dart throw in the second half to take you to the next level. And I think that a swap of of a guy that you're running out in your flex and you got some depth behind him, and a swap of a guy that I'm running out in my flex and I've got some depth behind him is the perfect scenario for both of us.
Perfect. I wrote that down. We'll lock those in.
We'll submit it all after the fact.
We'll finalize all those trades as the show wraps up. So
yep. Now, obviously,
that was awesome.
Yeah, that was good. So obviously, not all trades are going to be that agreeable, but that should give you a little bit of insight. And again, that was completely real. These trades are actually going to go down after the show. This is something that Dan mentioned wanting a piece, and I just so happened to be a trade partner that had those pieces. So we'll go ahead and make that happen. But just wanted to give you some insight into how those discussions work, how player evaluations work, how to talk narratives with each other, and make that happen in a way that's even for both teams, instead of what we see a lot of, which is people that want to make just terribly lopsided trades or not trade unless it's terribly lopsided. There's a way to fit the need for both teams.
I completely agree.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the news and keep this show rolling. Then that was a good exercise. I'm glad we did that.
That was awesome.
News.
All right, leading off, a couple trades we got to talk about. Patriots acquired wide receiver Mohamed Sanu for a 2020 second. So with wide receiver trades, first off, let's preface this. Everybody freaks shit over anybody that goes to the Patriots. Thing to remember, wide receiver trades, if you're going to go out and grab them, you're probably waiting 2 to 3 weeks for them to have a role in that offense.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a guy coming over that doesn't have history in that offense.
With the news of Josh Gordon going to IR, we don't really need to talk about it later. So that's happened, and he's likely going to get waived. He fits a veteran need alongside Julian Edelman. With the younger players, and I guess Dorsett's a veteran, but he's only been in the league for a few years.
Jacoby Myers has flashed.
Jacoby Myers has flashed as a rookie. Yeah, but then you get N'Keal Harry coming back, which should be next week potentially. There's also reports that New England tried to acquire him during the draft. So they love his versatility. As you all know, Sanu can both play inside and outside. In terms of fantasy viableness, though, I do agree. It's going to take a few weeks for him to get acclimated into the offense. It's also New England, so I wouldn't be surprised if by next week or in 2 weeks before their bye, he finds a way to be fantasy relevant and people freak out. But this is a far, far better football move than it will be likely for fantasy, though.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's a better football move than it is for fantasy. It might move the needle on Sanu a little bit, but he's still second in the pecking order behind Edelman. This is a team that's winning with defense and kind of grinding it out on offense. They're spreading the ball around to a lot of their other guys. It's not creating anything that's that fantasy relevant, but anything in New England's probably worth the dart throw. We've seen Mohamed Sanu have some big seasons and some big games, so it's worth keeping an eye on. And like Dan mentioned, versatility. You can play him inside and outside. Edelman's pretty much firmly entrenched in the slot, so you got to imagine that he's going to be outside. And maybe used as more of a field stretcher, which is something we saw from him in Cincinnati. Whereas, Myers and Edelman are more of your possession type of receivers.
Yeah, like for me, it'd be interesting because they don't have any tight ends. They just have Ben Watson.
Yeah.
So you could even you could see more you could see more 10 personnel with 4 receivers out there, but with how bad their offensive line is, I don't know if you'll see that. So
well, that's an important note, though, especially in the run game. If you're trying to get like a James White or Sony Michel sprung outside, Sanu's a good blocker.
That is very true.
So again, it's a solid football move, which is what the Patriots do. May not move the needle a whole lot in fantasy.
All right, we got a question before we move on to the other big trade that happened, I believe yesterday or today. I don't remember when it happened. Jack Lansford, he is a recurring listener and question asker, so welcome back, sir. Who's the better streamer this week, Ryan Tannehill, Teddy Bridgewater, or Mason Rudolph? Tannehill will get Tampa Bay at home. Teddy gets the Cardinals at home, and Steelers gets Miami at home.
Well, given something we're going to get to here in a little bit, I'm not going to say Teddy right now because there's a chance Teddy doesn't even play. Yep. Rudolph against Miami is a little... I say that's scary, and it's not because I'm worried about Miami's defense, because I'm worried about game script in that one. And quarterbacks actually don't do that fantastically against Miami, and that's because they just end up ahead and running the ball. So I'd probably be more interested, it all depends on which game you get, in Tannehill against Tampa Bay, who has a relatively weak secondary, at least as of late. They started off hot. They've kind of fallen off. And an offense that, while the Titans' defense is good, can at least keep that game close. I expect that game to be closer. And I really think Tannehill prepping as a starter with the weapons that he has around him, which is a weird thing to say about Tennessee, but they do have good skill players, is probably the best of the three.
Yeah, for me, it's Tannehill. Just, tell your points. And if Breeze doesn't go, then I think Teddy's interesting, just given the game flow pace that Arizona likes to keep.
If Breeze doesn't go, I love Teddy because of the game flow pace Arizona likes to keep, and they're going to have to keep up. Now, granted, New Orleans' defense has been on a tear, but Teddy has a potential to give you a little bit of rushing floor, even though that hasn't been the thing. I love Teddy, but right now I've got to say Tannehill based on Breeze potentially playing.
Yeah, so we're in agreement. Tannehill if Breeze can't go, Tannehill if Breeze can go, thus making Teddy obsolete.
Yep, I agree with that completely. All right, 49ers acquired Emmanuel Sanders under 2025th from the Broncos for a 2023rd and 4th. So, first off, good job by the Broncos getting those draft picks.
Yeah.
Second off, much, much better fantasy move than Mohamed Sanu, I think.
Is it? Yeah, I was going to say maybe.
So on the surface, I think so, because I think that there's a lot of similarities between the two teams, but I think the 49ers, even since training camp, have been looking for something more out of their wide receivers. You're not going to get it out of Goodwin. They kind of hope they got it out of Deebo Samuel, but he's still young. And Shanahan and Dante Pettis Pettis slept with Shanahan's wife or something. There's something going on there. So, Emmanuel Sanders is the type of possession receiver and route runner that, like what Mohamed Sanu was in Shanahan's offense, for example, when he was in Atlanta, that I think can make waves and make a bit of a difference and be a wide receiver 2 or depth wide receiver on your team. If he's floating around out there, grab him. I'm also kind of hoping he's successful so I can flip him too, because he's another one of my veterans on that dynasty team I need to flip.
He was a potential target for me within a high trade, but that may be for another day.
It might be. Talk to me in a couple weeks.
Yeah, right. I do agree with you that this is a better fantasy move. I think it'll still take a couple weeks.
All wide receivers will take a couple weeks. That's always the caveat to wide receivers. They do not come in and immediately produce on new teams.
I'm trying to think. Did Kyle Shanahan was he Sanders OC back in the Peyton Manning days, or am I thinking of somebody else? I think I'm somebody.
You're thinking of
somebody else.
Gase.
It might be Gase, but either way, Sanders. He's that T.Y. Hilton type of player where he'll offer, he'll run a bunch of the over middle routes, and then he'll also get a bunch of field stretching routes. While this team doesn't desperately need either or, and Sanders isn't a true number one, he's better than what they have here at this moment easily. And I think he could pair up well with a guy like George Kittle, where both guys can dominate over the middle, can dominate after the catch. And while Garoppolo has struggled with his consistency as a passer, having a player like Sanders who can stretch the field along with a guy like Goodwin could really give this offense the much needed firepower to be more than just a running team. That's what they are right now. Goodwin is their only true deep threat. Pettis isn't seeing the field enough. And they've been throwing out, fifth round picks outside of Samuel and Pettis and guys like Ricky, and guys like Richie James. So
yeah. And to be fair, so obviously nobody's saying Emmanuel Sanders is Julio Jones, but looking back here a little bit at Kyle Shanahan, 203 targets in a 16-game season for Julio Jones. 129 targets in just 14 games for Julio Jones. So he's a guy that if he has a wide receiver one he trusts, will target the hell out of him. You go back to Cleveland, I believe that's the year he made somebody otherwise not.
Gordon.
Andrew Hawkins.
And Hawkins. And he had Josh Gordon too, right?
No. Hawkins, Miles Austin, Taylor Gabriel.
Okay.
Josh Gordon. That was the year before Gordon's break.
That was the year before, okay.
That was the Andrew Hawkins relevant year. You go back to 2013 with Washington. You've got 181 targets for Pierre Garçon. He will target the hell out of a wide receiver one. You go back a year before that. Okay, not a whole lot. 73 targets for Josh Morgan. Not a whole lot on that team.
No.
But you get it. I mean, 114 targets for Jabbar Gaffney.
Jeez, that's a fucking name.
Jabbar Gaffney. 2011. Let's go back to 2010. I'm just enjoying this now. You got 145 targets for Santana Moss.
Which is funny because when you talk about the receiver, outside of Julio Jones, which is just a physical specimen of himself, it's all similar type of receivers like Sanders. Possession style yak receivers who can beat you deep.
Yep. Houston in 2009, 171 to Andre Johnson.
Oh, that's more like Julio than
171 to Andre Johnson, 101 to Owen Daniels. So, Chris Cooley was in there too as a high targeted guy. So, I mean, point being, Shanahan's offenses typically function best when there's a possession wide receiver and a tight end. They've got the tight end. So I love the potential of Emmanuel Sanders in this offense if he can come up to speed quick. He's a smart guy, been around the league a long time. Don't think it'll take him that long to come up to speed. It's just a matter of can Jimmy Garoppolo get him the ball now. It's absolutely worth the shot. If you own Sanders, hold him. If not, try to trade for him low. If he's on the waiver wire, pick him up because I think that is absolutely worth a shot.
Yep.
All right, Cardinals signed running back Alfred Morris. Depth. They also signed Zach Zenner after he was released by the Saints.
I think that speaks to more of David Johnson not playing this week.
Yep.
As they brought in a third running back likely to be active. But we've seen how that played out. So wait to hear reports on
basically Chase Edmonds is the guy. Those are just depth signings because Chase Edmonds ended up being their only active running back. So you got to sign two other guys. Depth signings. You got to have depth there. They signed two veterans. goal line backs, probably the area Chase Edmonds might struggle a little bit. We've seen Zinner just take ISOs up the middle into the end zone. Not this year yet, but yeah, it's Chase Edmonds there, and that's a bad sign for David Johnson playing.
It's also really a bad matchup, so you're most likely not playing Chase unless you're desperate. So it's pretty good.
More intriguing things, Lions signed running back Paul Perkins off their practice squad.
I'm surprised he's still practice squad eligible. To me, just like, what?
Yeah, so Paul Perkins, let's talk this for a second. For those that don't remember, which I'm assuming is not very many, Paul Perkins was a guy that had some relative efficiency for the Giants. It's only been in the league 3 years. It feels like it's been longer.
Feels like it's been for fucking ever.
He had some relative efficiency in 2016. 4.1 yards per attempt. Not a whole lot of touches. 112, 456 yards, no touchdowns. Not your goal line type of back. He is a guy though that may get looks, especially if J.D. McKissic and Ty Johnson aren't too efficient. Paul Perkins is another guy that could get looks, that has shown some efficiency. So worth watching. If you're in a dynasty league with roster spots and you might be competing, it's maybe worth a turn and burn. Is just a guy that could break out late in the year, kind of C.J. Anderson-esque.
Yeah, there's his depth, but I do agree that he's going to be. He'll have a role if Ty, and I don't know if McKissic's ever going to be someone that I'm really concerned with, just in case, just for the fact that McKissic is just more of a pass catcher in an offense that doesn't use their running backs into the backfield. So, if Ty either gets hurt or again struggles with efficiency, the same way Kerryon did, he won't have the same leash length as Kerryon did. So there is some intrigueness to Paul Perkins. Yep. If that's how it plays out.
I agree with that. All right, let's go ahead and get a hangover.
Hangovers.
All right, starting off. Question?
We have a question. Ryan B. I haven't seen Ryan B before, at least by your avatar.
Nope, I haven't. I don't recognize the name, so welcome. Thank you for checking us out. Thank you for listening. What's the question?
Question is, I'm assuming this is a start one. He's got Evan Ingram. I'm assuming Mark Ingram, who's on a bye week, so we don't talk about him. Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, or Hunter Henry. He has a caveat. He also has Andrews on the bench. If you want to save your starting tight ends, flex, want to give us a little bit more info, it is a PPR league.
So Andrews is on bye. So
Andrews and Ingram are both on bye.
So you're looking.
I just talked about Ingram.
Evan Ingram against the Lions. Who are the others?
Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen,
Bears,
and Hunter Henry. Yes, 3 Bears.
No,
I'm sorry. You said it's a trade. All right, sorry. All right,
okay.
So that makes a lot more sense. So it's Evan Ingram, Mark Ingram, Austin Eckler, or Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry. And it sounds like you could switch Hunter in for Mark Andrews. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
So it's Ingram, Eckler, Keenan, and Henry. He's got Mark Andrews on the bench. So, there's so much value in Ingram, Eckler. Just from a depth standpoint alone, like Keenan Allen, the offensive line for the Chargers is decimated, and that scares me a little bit. Especially with your involvement of Keenan Allen and Hunter Henry being on the same team and on one side of that trade. I know that's something you don't normally want to buy into a whole lot, but I don't know that you're going to have a whole lot with that offensive line being beat up of both of them having huge games, whereas the Ingram Eckler tandem, I think, gives you three or trio, I guess, gives you three very, very startable pieces week in and week out. And I'm the type of player that tends to value multiple guys that I can plug into my lineup. I'd rather have 3 guys that can give me 10 to 15 points a week than one guy that can give me 20 to 30. And so I'm absolutely salivating at the Ingram Eckler side.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Greens on this one. Since Hunter Henry's come back, he's eaten into the Keenan Allen target share. They both kind of, I guess, played a similar, spot for this offense as they eat up a lot of the middle of the field type of targets. Obviously, Keenan Allen's got an extreme upside. If I had to make that move, I would probably swap a Hunter Henry for Mark Andrews. I just like Mark Andrews' target share within that offense, and he's basically George Kittle light at this point.
He is, and I tossed out some stats on Monday about the Ravens, and this plays to Mark Ingram. They run the football more than anybody. They sustain drives more than anybody. Higher red zone percentage than anybody. And the way they do that is grinding out first downs and running the football, which bodes well for Mark Ingram. Melvin Gordon struggled, which is, while Austin Eckler continues to perform, and Evan Ingram on the Giants, I think, is at least, when we talk tiers, he's the same tier as Hunter Henry. So,
yeah, I'm still going with the Ingram Eckler side. If you look at their playoff matchups, it's not great for Ingram. Chargers have a little bit better from a passing standpoint. They get Jacksonville, Minnesota, and Oakland. Well, that's the Chargers. The Ravens get Niners, Bills, and Jets for your on the ground game, which is not pleasant. Great. But again, a team that runs the ball a shit ton and has a dynamic player like Lamar
Volume
Jackson
will make up for efficiency, especially when you can spread the field.
Yeah. So not much more for that one, but that's an interesting trade.
Yeah. All right. Adam Thielen out for tomorrow night's game. That just makes Stephon Diggs that much more of a must start there against the Redskins. Yes. It's really going to be a Dalvin Cook game, though, let's be honest. Lions plays Kerryon Johnson and IR. Earliest he can return is week 16. It's against the Broncos. Do you even hold him in redraft at this point?
If you have an IR slot that's freed up, there's no reason to drop him. But it's funny because a friend of the show, Casey, I'm trying to remember her last name. So now I just feel terrible.
On Twitter?
She posted,
Kasem?
On Twitter.
Casey Kasem on Twitter.
Casey Kasem.
We'll keep her actual last name secluded or secured since it's not public on Twitter. Anyway.
Yeah, so a friend of the show, a friend of ours, she posted a similar question. I responded by saying there's no reason for Kerryon to come back if the Lions are out of playoff contention. He's a running back of the future. He's got a banged up history already, just dating back to high school. So for me, is you might as well shut him down and just kind of ride what you have here. If you're in playoff contention and you feel comfortable, you can bring him back. You don't have to play him. You can bring him back.
And my argument for that is that you got a guy that's eligible to return in week 16. There's a chance he doesn't come back based on exactly what you just said. And that matchup in week 16 is against the Broncos, who are about middle in the pack in what they're allowing to running backs. And Kerryon Johnson hadn't been terribly efficient this year anyway. So if you need to drop him, I feel more confident in the fact that you can do that without really regretting it because of what the matchup is in week 16, because I think that there's no way they rush him back in week 16 if they're not in playoff contention, and they play in a division with the Vikings and the Packers. I won't include the Bears in that, but you kind of get where I'm coming from there.
I know.
And it's not a great matchup anyway when he does get back for a player that hadn't been efficient while he was allegedly healthy for most of the season. So, for me, if I have to, and I agree with you, if there's an IR spot, there's no reason to. But if I have to, if I'm in a league that doesn't have IR spots, first off, why? But second off, I'm completely okay with making that drop.
Now, I will play devil's advocate to one thing, because if you're a 7-0 and 61 team, maybe you try floating him out there as a trade thing, as like it's something. Maybe somebody there is going to take a chance on him. likely not going to happen, but there's always reasons to go and sniff because he hasn't. There's been no news on him saying that he's not going to play for the rest of the year. Reports you can say are 50-50 on them bringing him back. Well, 4 weeks 16, but either way, you're likely dropping him.
Well, it's week 16 and 17 if they decide to bring him back from an NFL standpoint, and that's the way you've really got to look at it too. Because if they're in even close to playoff contention and he's healthy enough, they will bring him back. Because
I agree with
2
that,
games
yes.
left in the NFL season. It's just the matchup against Denver being the week 16 end of the fantasy season in every league that's worth a damn. Then you kind of got to shy away, I think, and not hold on if there's no reason to hold on.
Yeah.
ESPN's Justina Anderson reports Adrian Peterson has a grade 1 high ankle sprain and a grade 2 low ankle sprain. Peterson still believes he'll be a go for the game tomorrow.
He really wants to beat up the Vikings. The last time he played was when he was a Saint, and it did not go over so well for him.
Yeah, so here's the thing. You got a high ankle sprain and a low ankle sprain. You can want to play, and maybe he does, but that's a bad matchup. That's a crippled running back, and I don't think you get anywhere with that. Remember how we say Wendell Smallwood is relevant?
Oh,
at least
God,
once a
please
year?
don't.
I'm looking at this depth chart, right? Wendell Smallwood, this might be it. This might be the game where Wendell Smallwood's relevant.
He's gonna have. I mean, he can catch passes. That's he's had that type of workload in Philadelphia. Though it's never been his sole job, but they literally have nobody else there. No Chris Thompson. Bryce Love not coming back this year. Guys isn't designated to return till week 10.
Yep.
There's just I mean,
Yeah,
you might
Bryce
be
Love's
right.
undergoing another surgery, so
He's probably gonna have 12 carries for 20 yards and then like 6
touchdown.
catches for like 23 yards and maybe a touchdown. Like he's gonna give you a very Chris Thompson without the yak
It's
week.
gonna be the Wendell Small. Can I change his start of the week to Wendell Smallwood?
He's gonna be Tariq Cohen with his 9
Something.
catches and 19 yards.
Yeah. Giants wide receiver Sterling Shepard has no doubt he'll play again this season. He clarified and said he's not sure when, though.
Yeah.
So for that, sorry,
No, it's fine.
reflux. Look, for Sterling Shepard, it's not going to be a season where the Giants are in playoff contention. There's no reason for him with 2 concussions in 4 weeks as a young guy and Golden Tate being there with the kind of the shared role to rush back or try to come back sooner than what he's ready to come back.
Yeah, if I'm the Giants, like I wouldn't be surprised within the next couple of weeks he's out placed in IR and then just ends his season. I know the competitive nature to want to play this year. There's absolutely no reason for him to come back rushed. He's already had multiple concussions, I believe. He typically gets nicked up at least a couple times a year. There's like for me, it's if I'm the Giants, which isn't saying much, I'm probably not going to play him again this year.
No reason to.
Yeah.
Josh Gordon was placed on IR ending his 2019 season. It's reported the team will waive him once he's healthy. So I get asked now, and I've kind of always been of this opinion. Josh Gordon, really that good or a product of the Browns? And what I mean by product of the Browns is that we saw during that run of Browns mediocrity, which is weirdly still happening, a lot of players that didn't end up being worth the shit elsewhere that had huge seasons for them. Is Josh Gordon another one of those?
I mean, you can't, he comes out of nowhere and produces arguably the
So
best
did Terrell
receiving
Pryor.
season. Terrell Pryor, product of whatever their quarterbacks were. A lot of Brian Hoyer, Jason Campbell, Brendan Whedon. I'm trying to see who they're. Norv Turner. So he fit the offense completely right for a blow up. I think he's always been a guy who's physically gifted, who people want to root for because the only problem he's had is smoking too much weed. I won't say addicted because you can't be fucking addicted to weed.
Well, and injuries now.
And then now injuries. I think with New England's obvious Super Bowl aspirations, given their start, they just didn't have there's no room for Josh Gordon. For those wondering out there, the Miami Dolphins have the number one waiver claim if they want to make a claim on Gordon. I won't be surprised if Gordon's given another shot. I don't know if he'll play this year, but I'm sure somebody will believe in his talent and give him a shot. And
well, yeah, and they
whatever
should
that's
believe
worth.
in the talent. It's just one of those things that's like, all right, was that polished talent, or is this another? I mean, insert wide receiver here, Travis Benjamin, Burrell Pryor. There's a laundry list of Andrew Hawkins, a laundry list of receivers for the Browns that have been relevant. Now, granted, Gordon obviously had the bigger season out of any of them, or the biggest season of any of them, but a lot of guys that have been relevant in Cleveland during their kind of we're always losing, throw the ball a bunch futility. So just one of those things that comes to mind now where it's like, all right, tried to come back in Cleveland, didn't work. Tried to come back in New England, was healthy actually for a bit of a chunk and not suspended for 7 games this year and didn't really give you much. So and then even last year didn't give you the big blowout games you were used to. So what is Josh Gordon other than
So hopefully you
injured
sold
and-
them in Dynasty like we've been telling you
for
the last
years?
umpteenth years. So
Yeah.
all right. Moving
Mike Tomlin said Jalen Samuels is back practicing partially. Injured his knee a couple weeks back. He's given a 4 to 6 weeks timetable. He won't be back yet. When he is back, he'll be used because of the shape this offense is in. Not back yet.
Yep.
Broncos wide receiver Tim Patrick is expected to be activated from IR after week 10. Patrick's recovering from a broken hand. Look, the part about the Sanders trade we didn't talk about was Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton's a must start going in now.
Sure.
He was fringe must start beforehand. You take Sanders 6 to 7 targets a week out of that, he's going to be a must start. Tim Patrick is a guy that we'll be looking at in plus matchups going on down the stretch because he's going to come in and be the 2.
No, I mean you still have Deshaun. You still have Deshaun Hamilton.
Deshaun Hamilton, though,
The three rotated. The 3 rotated in
different roles.
Relevance last year. It's Sutton's team, just given what we've seen so
It's
far.
Sutton's team. I'm just saying that you had Sanders
I don't
and
hate
Sutton
on-
playing
yeah.
outside, Hamilton playing on the inside. Patrick is going to fill that role and has flashed, whereas Hamilton's been in the lineup all year, and we love Deshaun Hamilton.
Yeah.
But when have we talked about Deshaun Hamilton having a relevant week?
Not since last year.
Exactly.
Hands problem. This is a good note to make for those wanting to wait on something small. It's even an important dynasty because I'm sure Tim Patrick's available in a bunch of leagues.
Oh, 100%. And I'm not saying Tim Patrick is a long-term answer. I'm saying that you're probably going to get some relevance out of Tim Patrick. He's a 6'4", 212-pound, 25-year-old receiver. I mean, that is...
But Joe Flacco will throw him the football.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
Both good and bad.
Yeah, but he had a couple relevant weeks last year
Yeah.
when he got the chance. You look at his targets, 10, 8, 5, 7, different coaching staff. 2 of those 4 weeks over 50 yards. So just a guy that keep an eye on. All right. Deshaun Jackson still not practicing as he continues to recover from an abdomen injury. I feel like this was majorly undersold. He could have been on IR by now.
I feel like this is Dalvin Cook from last year.
Yep. Is that a real name?
That is a real fucking name.
Bengals reporter Ben Baby reports AJ Green is unlikely to play in Week 8. Yeah, we expected that.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold did not practice today due to a toe injury. Speaking of Sam Darnold, just a side here. Did you see all the NFL Films drama going on with the Jets?
I know that he saw ghosts and people are just ripping him apart.
People are ripping him apart, but the Jets are pissed because NFL Films is supposed to reasonably not air comments through the games that when players are mic'd up to make them look bad. And that's exactly what they did. And everybody knows Darnold was seeing ghost. I mean, he was 11 for 30 whatever and 4 picks. Did not have a good game. The Patriots defense had him all sorts of confuddled. Everybody knows that, but to air that.
That's true. That's. I didn't notice that. I must have been half paying attention to.
I read a SI article on it earlier, but yeah, it's one of those things where, while Twitter's obviously going to rip him apart, the team, Lev Bell had some comments on it, obviously not happy.
Oh man, I fucked up this part.
Did you? Yeah, I'll let you read it then, because I don't know what you're going for here.
It's supposed to be Chris Thompson's out against the Vikings Thursday night.
Oh, okay. Well, more of a reason to look at Wendell Smallwood having a game.
Yeah.
James Conner expects to play Monday night against the Dolphins. He's been dealing with a quad injury. This is just kind of James Conner, honestly. He's the Julio Jones of running backs. Patrick Mahomes, what? Patrick Mahomes was limited in practice today. Why? Hold on. Patrick Mahomes was practicing?
He's coming off of a dislocated knee he did
this past week.
6 days ago. Not even a fucking week yet. 6 days. Clearly he's not playing against Green Bay.
Is he ruled out yet?
No. He's not playing against Green Bay. There's no fucking way. But Minnesota fans, myself being one, and following other people on Twitter, are like hysterically pissed right now because he's probably there's a chance he can play against Minnesota.
He was supposed to be out
what the fuck?
For 3 weeks. We recommended, a couple starts of the week we'll talk about here later as potential fill-ins for Mahomes owners. This is insane.
Yeah.
Please, Andy Reid, do not play Patrick Mahomes this week. Just please don't, with the ankle, with the knee. Give him a little bit of time to rest up, because holy shit, he's practicing. That is insane to me. He dislocated his knee last week and is practicing.
I know.
Yeah, I don't think he plays. I think that'd be absolutely.
Oh no, he's not. He is. I'm going to say 100% sure he's not playing. But next week, only 2 weeks removed, is probably even more shocking still.
Okay, Matt Ryan did not practice today, but as he deals with an ankle injury, it was reported earlier by Dan Quinn he expects him to play.
Yeah, I expect him to play.
I expect him to play too.
Ryan's a lot of ankle injuries.
Ryan's not a mobile quarterback. He doesn't need his ankles.
Same. It's like Peyton Manning playing on just a bunch of high ankle sprains.
Yeah. Delaney Walker not practiced today as he deals with an ankle injury. Johnny Smith is your logical fill-in as they take on the Bucs. If that doesn't go
later.
Johnny Smith fills in for Walker at some point every season and is startable at some point every season. And please retire so I can actually use Johnny Smith week in and week out.
We want Johnny Smith.
Yeah. Sterling Shepard limited in practice. We're talking about Shepard twice in this episode.
I don't know. I put it in there.
All right. Anyway, no more about Sterling Shepard. Saquon Barkley limited in practice today due to his ankle injury. He's going to play. He played last week. They're just letting him try to recover it while still playing in games, I guess. David Johnson did not practice due to back and ankle injuries. We mentioned what the Cardinals did this week, which means David Johnson's not likely to play this week. Tyrell Williams returned to practice with plantar fasciitis. They'll probably play.
Oof.
Josh Jacobs did not practice due to a shoulder injury. Jacobs is questionable for Sunday's game. Shoulder injury is not as bad for running backs as ankle injuries, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean,
there are a lot of people out.
He takes a lot of hits. He takes, he's there. He's there between the tackles. Grinder doesn't catch a whole lot of passes out of the backfield, so
it matters.
He takes a lot of hits, and those will, of course, add up
on a shoulder.
Yeah,
and they were working people out.
And he's been kind of carrying the Raiders' offense, so it makes sense.
Sean Payton said Drew Brees will be a game-time decision this week against the Cardinals. So, talked about Drew Brees and his health at length on Monday's episode, and I don't think your thoughts have changed here. I don't know that there's a reason to rush him out against the Cardinals. I think Teddy can give you a competitive game there, and you bring Brees back after the bye week. Obviously, if Brees is even close to playing, he's going to lobby to play. But I think if you're the Saints, you kind of stop him from doing that. Give him another 2 weeks off with one game and let him come back after the bye.
Yep. There's no reason to play him this week.
Yep. Corey Davis did not practice due to illness, so I'm not so concerned about that because unless it's mono, he should be fine come Sunday. OJ Howard was limited in practice today due to a hamstring injury. Nobody cares. He's splitting time with Cameron Brayton. Should be cut. That's my goal. Is
He needs
cut
to get traded. God damn it. Free him from Bruce Arians' hold on tight ends.
Free Cameron Brate.
Free both of them.
Free the real talented tight end. Free Cameron Brate.
Hey, now.
Malcolm Brown did not practice today due to an ankle injury.
He didn't play last week. Probably won't play this week.
More later. Alvin Kamara did not practice today due to his ankle injury. Jared Cook did not practice today due to his ankle injury. Neither one of them played last week. Kamara was close. I'd expect Kamara to play this week. Cook, don't know that I care.
Yep.
Matt LaFleur said Devontae Adams' week 8 status could go right up to game time. It was expected that Adams wouldn't miss much time when he initially suffered the toe injury. He's been out for 2 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if he does play. I also wouldn't be surprised if he takes another week off.
Toe injuries are a fickle bitch, especially for receivers and trying to make cuts and plant and go.
Yep. Sammy Watkins was a full participant in today's practice. I remembered what that meant from last week. FP. We talked about Watkins on Monday, and the consensus was that if Matt Moore starts, you don't worry about it. If Mahomes somehow plays, then okay. But if Matt Moore starts,
I don't know if I want to play Sammy Watkins if Mahomes plays, because I don't think
I don't want Mahomes to play.
We're not willing this new. We're not talking about this anymore. We're moving on. Mahomes isn't fucking playing.
Ryan Suckup is designated to return from IR. He's not eligible to return until week 9. Pick him up if he does. Kickers on offenses that move the football but can't get to the end zone are good kickers. Christian Kirk limited in practice today due to his ankle injury. Christian Kirk's a guy you're waiting to come back from a volume perspective alone. Valdez Scantling was a full participant in practice today, which means that either Jake Kumaro or Alan Lazard is now no longer probably fantasy relevant. Adams and Allison, interesting. Nothing Allison, actually, so I don't know what he's doing. But
no clue.
And Deebo Samuel limited in practice due to his groin injury. So, yeah. All right, let's actually get to the...
Jesus.
Let's do a beer review first, and then we'll get to the rest of this, because I'm about out of beer.
Same here.
We're halfway through the episode, and we're almost an hour.
We'll speed up.
We'll speed up. The second half always goes faster.
Yep.
Beer review.
All right, Dan. What did you think of your Belgian season?
All right, what did I think of my Umbral a Tautlé Le Monde collaboration with me?
I'm super impressed with your pronunciation there, by the way. Can I just tell you that? Good job, because I don't think you can get equanimous yet, but you got that down.
I'm not. If you ask me to do that again, I won't be able to. Anyways, as someone who doesn't prefer Belgian styles, especially and also saisons, this is actually quite tasty. First sip, I was a little concerned. The Belgian yeast kind of stuck out, and that's one thing I don't particularly like when I drink my beers. Is the yeast, that Belgian strain or whatever that they use, this tends to fuck with me. But the lemongrass sticks out. It's got a lot of citrus notes. It even has I get a hint of cinnamon, which it's really fucking weird to me. Maybe it's the aging of it. I'm not sure when this was bottled, but the Best Buy has still got a year on it. So typically the Belgian style and saisons can last for well over a year. But anyways, very easy drinking. Like I said, with the lemongrass, you get a nice citrus, piney notes on the mouth. And it's got a nice clean aftertaste to it. I would actually probably drink this again. So much for hating this. This has been a style that I tend to avoid, and being forced to actually trying it because I care about you guys out there. Has been a pleasant surprise with this one.
All right, I was drinking Dankwood from Founders with Barrel Aged Red IPA that had been cellared for 18 months, basically. So, my thoughts on this. I've had Dankwood both ways. Cellaring it brought out the wood part of the Dankwood more, I think. The
As
bitterness
it
is
should.
still absolutely there, as well as the kind of the grain taste that you get from a red. And by grain, I don't mean like harsh grain alcohol. I mean kind of the roastiness of it. Where the bourbon comes through is different than what it came through on last week's beer, which I already don't remember what it was. But
I don't either.
no, I don't. But it comes through a little bit hotter on this. But more of the spice, more of kind of an oaky, what would be referred to in bourbon tasting notes as like a leathery type of taste that has a semi-dry finish. But there is a subtle sweetness that comes through on it as well, also, which is something that comes through on it when you drink it fresh as well as aged. I think the sweetness is a little bit more exasperated as it's aged. Again, that's a common thing you get out of barrel aged beer. It's vanilla coming through, which is a prominent bourbon flavor. But overall, I think it was aged pretty gracefully. I don't know that it made a whole lot of difference between the way it normally tastes on draft and the way it tastes now, other than giving it a bit drier of a finish and allowing the bourbon notes to come out on the back a bit more. But as far as moving the needle on drinkability, I don't know that it did that a whole lot. Still a very, very good, very, very solid beer.
Interesting.
So,
Interesting.
red IPA, not something you typically think about aging. I don't know how I ended up doing that, but I did. So,
I mean, it's barrel aged, so it's
yeah.
inherently you can keep it longer. I mean, you can age 120 from
Yeah.
Dogfish.
Yep.
You shouldn't drink it, but you can.
No, anything barrel aged you can age, but
Yeah.
it's just a matter of how gracefully do IPAs age, which is not very, and that's part of it because the red part of it came out more and the bourbon part of it came out more, and the IPA really just settled into a dry finish.
Interesting.
All right, let's go ahead and get to the top shelf rail. Start and sits.
Top shelf or rail.
All right, you heard about Dan's Punishment Beer. This segment and the You Call It segment are, and the stream segment are how we determine winners and losers for that based on accuracy. So these are our picks for this week. Start, sits, streams, and You Call It. Stan, go ahead and start us off with Ty Johnson.
All right, Ty Johnson becomes the lead back with Kieran Johnson going to IR. Ty Johnson out-snapped J.D. McKissick last week against the Vikings 49-19, out-touched them 14-7. Pretty clear that Ty Johnson's the back to own against the Giants, who are a very bad run defense over the past 4 weeks. Giants have allowed the fifth most points to running backs, over 100 yards per game to the position to go along with 4 rushing touchdowns. Running backs have amassed 27 catches during that span, nearly 7 catches per game. Also remember, though, that the Lions are ranked bottom in the league to targets and catches going to running backs.
All right, and for me, my first start of the week is going to go to John Brown against Philly. Philly's been absolutely terrible against the pass. For John Brown, he's had at least 5 targets, 4 receptions, 50-plus yards in every game. Gives you a decent floor, so you don't have to feel scared starting him. Eagles are giving up most points per game, 2 wide receivers. Top targets typically towards the Eagles. So top targets on our team typically are what are doing the Eagles in, which John Brown is for the Bills. And in all games but 2, they've allowed over 15 points to wide receiver 1. Not a great secondary there in Philadelphia. John Brown's gotten the volume. He has the floor. I think you get a bit of the upside this week.
I agree.
All right, you're looking at Corey Davis against Tampa Bay, another pick that I like a lot.
He was able to connect with Tannehill last week for a touchdown, and during that, he also set season highs in targets and catches. And now he gets a very favorable matchup against a very beatable Bucs secondary. Bucs have given up the most points to receivers over the past 4 weeks. Wide receivers during their 3 games over these past 4 weeks, so they had a bye week, are averaging 25 targets, 18 catches, 248 yards per game. They've also given up 5 touchdowns. I like Davis. I like A.J. Brown. And I actually like Jonnu Smith more on him a little bit later as a more of a vertical game against a very beatable secondary.
Yep, I agree with Corey Davis, especially against Tampa Bay. He's not been great here recently. Ryan Tannehill, much better passer than Marcus Mariota in a game that's very, very winnable, especially for wide receivers. And also with a full week preparing as a starter. So this next guy, we got a question?
We got a question.
Go ahead.
Danny Messi, also returning listener. Welcome back, sir. Thanks
What's
for tuning
up?
in. He asked us, standard scoring, no PPR. Doesn't move the needle for me in this question. Tyler Lockett versus Atlanta or Mike Evans versus the Titans?
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, Lockett easily, both higher floor and ceiling for him this week. Evans is always an upside chance for him to blow up, but the emergence of Chris Godwin has taken away a ceiling game, and Atlanta's defense and the team itself has spun out of control. Lockett is due for a nice bounce back game.
Yeah, my point there on Evans was going to be Titans' defense is severely underrated. They don't give up a whole lot to either position. Now, there is a narrative where I see maybe Godwin draws top coverage, but likely will be Evans, which I think is why Godwin is feasting right now.
I think you want top coverage because you get Malcolm Brown, who's not a very good corner.
Right. Well, Logan Ryan.
Oh, that's right. Either or.
You get Malcolm Brown as secondary coverage. So, I mean, I would rather have Malcolm Brown than Logan Ryan.
It depends who plays in the slot because Godwin is more of a slot guy.
He is.
As you'll use, Pyramid or.
Regardless, Atlanta's been one of the worst against wide receivers. Seattle's been throwing the football a bit more this season. Tyler Lockett gives you less bust potential with about the same upside.
I agree. He has got a follow-up question here. Who's your favorite quarterback to stream amongst these players he's chosen for us? Josh Allen, Carson Wentz, Kyler Murray, or Mason Rudolph?
Let's see here. Just to set it up, Josh Allen has the Eagles. Carson, who was in there? Josh Allen has the Eagles.
So he's got Wentz and Allen facing off.
Okay.
So you're picking between Josh Allen against the Eagles, Wentz against the Bills, Kyler Murray versus the Saints, Mason Rudolph versus the Dolphins.
I'm most comfortable with Wentz, but if you're looking for upside, Josh Allen would be kind of where I would lean there, given the fact that Eagles' secondary has been absolutely terrible. Kyler against the Saints, the way the Saints defense has been playing, little bit scarier. And I mentioned Rudolph earlier in the show, just as against the Dolphins, it's like you don't have to throw a whole lot. So quarterbacks actually don't do as well as you would expect, given the fact that most of those games are blowouts. So it'd be one of the quarterbacks in that Eagles-Bills game. I'm most comfortable with Wentz because of the floor. But if you need upside, you're projected to lose by 10 or more, Josh Allen is probably the way I'd go.
Josh Allen, to me, is the correct answer. Josh Allen and Kyler Murray are one and the same when it comes to fantasy floor. Decent rushing floor with always a chance to throw one deep. Saints defense is playing lights out against a rookie quarterback. There's no way I'm playing Kyler Murray this week. Wentz without Deshaun Jackson has really struggled outside of playing against Green Bay. He's missing his deep threat. And then, with Nelson Aguilar, Nelson Aguilar things playing as their deep threat has struggled, I think, a little bit. So for me, it's Josh Allen. So I do agree with you there.
Yeah. All right. So for me, this might be a little bit of a situation where it's like almost foul, but to me, the running back 18 is not a must start every week. So I'm going to call this out. Todd Gurley. I know, again, it's weird. If you're a Todd Gurley owner, you know that you've had to have some pause about starting Todd Gurley this year, though. I mean, I think that's a fair statement for a guy that's averaging 3.2 yards an attempt. He gets the Bengals, which should be a get up early, run the clock sort of game. You don't have Malcolm Brown there, which I think leads to more than the standard 14 to 17 carries for Todd Gurley. He's not really been getting a ton of touches or efficiency, so this matchup should at least yield a cheap touchdown. But I do think you get better efficiency out of him this week than what you've maybe gotten in the past, at least as far as the season goes. And without Malcolm Brown, I do think you probably see a little bit more volume there too. I think you're looking at much better than an RB18 performance from Todd Gurley this week.
Great matchup. He may not get a touchdown, but he'll likely get all the volume in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, Darrell Henderson will be splashed in, and I think he's found a comfortable role in that change of pace, 10 to 12 touches, and generally 10 to 12 decent quality touches. So it shouldn't affect Todd Gurley this side of stuff, at least for me this week.
Yep. All right, you're looking at Terry McLaurin against Minnesota.
Terry McLaurin versus Minnesota. Last week was the rough one for McLaurin. He got just a bad weather game. He gets Richard Sherman. He gets bad Case Keenum and wet conditions all around. His season low in targets and catches. Gets a far better matchup and a far better game script against Minnesota. Vikings defensive backs are struggling, and by struggling, that's probably an understatement. They've been fucking terrible. Teams have been taking advantage of this too. Stafford and Marvin Jones carved up the secondary to a tune of 4 touchdowns and 364 yards. While Keenum and McLaurin are no Stafford and Jones at this moment, there's still huge upside for garbage time, and McLaurin seems to always get one deep. You can beat Rhodes, you can beat Wayne's deep. Rhodes just doesn't have the legs anymore, and Wayne's is more of a rush coverage cornerback. See Antoine Winfield. Also, he gets funneled with his targets. 24% target share from this season. I like that. So I like McLaurin in this bounce back game for tomorrow night.
Yep. All right. So for me, I'm looking Kenny Stills against Oakland. We talked about him on Monday's show. Go back and listen to that. Hashtag shameless self-promotion. I haven't done that in a while. But you got no Will Fuller. He's got over 80 yards 2 of his last 3 weeks. He's first in air yards, first in yards per reception. Raiders are allowing 15.8 yards per reception, which is the second highest in the league. And again, no Will Fuller. When Stills came over, we thought it was a little weird because, well, I always think it's a little weird when you got 2 players on the same team that kind of fill the same role. Well, now one of them popped a hamstring for like the 4th time in 3 seasons. So it is Will Fuller's deep game. And this is a team that's giving up deep plays. He's on a good stretch and should see the target volume go up without Will Fuller there. I actually picked up and intend on starting Kenny Stills in a couple places.
I do like that call.
All right. Looking at sits now, you've got Carlos Hyde, who you just traded for earlier in the show against Oakland.
Yep. Hyde, before last week, Hyde was enjoying a nice 3-game stretch where he totaled at least 60 yards and a touchdown. He struggled to get it going against Indy, and now he gets a pretty bad matchup against Oakland. Oakland has struggled mightily against the pass this year, so teams have targeted them there. That shows up even more over their past 3 games. Teams have only rushed 51 times for 154 yards and 1 touchdown. You can beat the Raiders through the air with running backs. That's not Hyde's game. He can do it. I believe he's had multiple games of, I think, 4 or more targets, but that's more of a Duke Johnson role. For me, I'm sitting him on this one and we'll wait until next week.
All right, I'm looking at Phillip Rivers in Chicago. So, a little bit of a bold take here, but the offense hasn't been great. Forrest Lamp, another offensive lineman, is lost to injury. Even without Hicks, the Bears' pass rush is good, to say the least. Average is 251-1 against the Bears, but my concern here is that with a bad offensive line, that Khalil Mack and what's left of a Bears pass rush score, which again is still good, can completely disrupt the Chargers offense and Phillip Rivers this week, pushing him outside of that quarterback 1 territory. So we've seen good pass rushes completely mask other things, and I think this is a game where I just don't like the matchup of a decimated Chargers offensive line going up against a Bears pass rush.
I don't like this game at all.
I don't like anything of this game either.
There's a reason why I'm taking Chargers into points, but more on that later.
Yep. All right. You got Odell Beckham against New England, which is a mighty good call, especially given Beckham's lack of wide receiver 1 performance this year.
So you have a struggling Browns offense. You have a struggling Baker Mayfield, who is also seeing ghosts because of New England. You also get Stephon Gilmore, and you get an all-around defense that has been insanely good this year in New England. You may have to play Beckham because of his draft, just because you may not have much else to trust there. There is always upside to Beckham. He can take a play to the house at any given point. You do this against any cornerback. The offense as a whole has struggled. You have the second best pass rush in the NFL with New England's defense. That's going to make Baker stay a living fucking hell. I don't care what trades they've made from the Browns' perspective. The You gotta sit him if you can. I understand if you gotta play him. I have him in multiple leagues. I'm not playing him in. So that's my take.
All right. I'm looking at DJ Moore against San Francisco, and this is another one of those halfway bold takes because Moore's been good this year, but the 49ers have allowed, again, this is a recap from Monday's episode where we did the Which Team Am I segment. The 49ers have allowed the fewest pass attempts through 6 games and the fewest pass yards in that same time frame as well. 6 games meaning they've had the bye week. They're third in quarterback hurry. We have the fewest plays run against them, and no receiver's been over 10 points in the last 3 weeks. It is not a good matchup for Carolina this week unless they can get CMC going. The Niners defense has been absolutely stifling. They're, Kyle Allen, for as good as he's been, this is going to be a very, very tough matchup. And I mean, we saw the vaunted Rams offense fall victim to this, and I don't think that the Panthers are anywhere near that. So I am steering clear of DJ Moore this week.
Yeah, the San Francisco defense is what Baltimore was last year when Lamar Jackson took over. You run the ball, you play great defense, you give them no chance to actually run plays.
Yeah. All right. You've got listed Alshon Jeffrey at Philly, which I don't think is possible. But
oops. I think it's at Buffalo, right?
I've got it pulled up. Yeah, it's at Buffalo.
Yeah. So the only reason why I don't love Carson Wentz this week because of where the offense is. Alshon Jeffrey, well, he hasn't had a great game this year. He hasn't really killed you. Last week was probably his worst week, but the Eagles' offense, I think, looked pretty bad last week against Dallas. So you can take that for what it's worth. He struggled against Byron Jones, as I mentioned earlier in the show, and now he gets Tre'Davious White, who is one of the better cover corners and shadow corners in the NFL. Alshon was held to 0 catches against Byron Jones when he lined up against him. I expect the same similar type of coverage on him from White. A similar style defense that can get to the quarterback and make their lives a living hell. I'm not playing Alshon if I can.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Buffalo's been incredibly good on defense this year. The Phillies, you get it. Eagles,
yes.
Phillies also. Offense.
Yeah, I mean, it works.
Not been great, so I can see why you're steering clear of Alshon. For me, my last sit of the week, Royce Freeman. 3 of the last 4 backs have been under 10 points against Indianapolis. Hiccups. 3 of the last 4 backs have been under 10 points against Indianapolis. Under 40 yards the last 2 weeks for Royce Freeman. Expect this game to be more defensive than anything. Neither offense has been necessarily world-beating. Both defenses have been above average. Royce Freeman not giving you a ton of efficiency, we'll say. I want to say volume because he's still in about a 50-50 split, but the efficiency hasn't been there the last couple weeks. Did save his day with a touchdown, but I'm not necessarily looking to run him out against the Colts defense against the run that's been on a hot streak. So sitting Royce Freeman this week.
Royce has been like the definition of average.
Yeah,
I think his uptick in pass catching work is really giving him a decent floor, but he's still like outside of his touchdown last week that he got, which I'm shocked he's still Philip Lindsay's touchdown, but
yeah.
Either way.
All right, let's go ahead and weekly specials, talk streams. 2 of these guys we will not have to spend a lot of time on because we spent a ton of time on them on Monday.
Yeah, so
weekly specials.
Yeah, there's a drop for this. Sorry, I was just enjoying
drop. That's
this
right.
And go.
Kirk Cousins. I'll take the layup. He just meets the threshold under 60% at 58.9, likely because you picked him up as receiver for this very reason. QB2 over the last 3 weeks. That's pretty much the true spark notes from Monday's episode about him.
All right, for me, Matthew Stafford against the Giants. Cousins and Stafford's both guys are the 2 guys we mentioned earlier, by the way, to replace Mahomes. Stafford, 3 games now this season's over 3 or more touchdown passes. His quarterback 7 average fantasy points. Already had his bye week. 23 or more points given up by the Giants to quarterbacks in all weeks, aside from the week Dwayne Haskins came in and Kyler Murray last week in the rain. The Lions have been more of a passing team this year against the Giants secondary that hasn't been able to stop anything. So Matthew Stafford against the Giants, something I'm looking at. All right, tight ends. You got Johnny Smith against Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay has been very friendly to tight ends this season. They've given up the second most points on the year and the fifth most points over the past 4 weeks. Delaney Walker is still not practicing, and he barely, I think he played a couple snaps last week before coming off the field. I will not be surprised if he sits this week. When it comes to streaming tight ends, you're generally looking for a positive matchup and potential for big plays. Johnny Smith has both of those. Well, he only had 3 targets last week. He caught all 3 of them for 64 yards. Played on 83% of snaps. I expect that to go up. You just need one of those bigger plays to go for either a long gain or touchdown. So I like Jono's chances to hit this week.
All right, I'm looking at Mike Gesicki. He's got 11 targets over the last 2 weeks, 92 yards. Pittsburgh's given up the last 2 big weeks to tight ends. Pretty readily available in a real week of thin tight end options. So the uptick with Gesicki, especially with Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm, passing offense should be marginally better with that. And he's actually had some volume as well as a little bit of floor the last 2 weeks. So you'll probably do worse than starting him, and it doesn't take a lot to be a top 12 tight end.
Yep.
All right, looking at the Colts versus Denver for your streaming defense.
Streaming defense, Flacco has been a turnover machine this year. He's thrown a pick in 5 out of his 7 games he's played. While he didn't throw one last week against the Chiefs, he did take 8 sacks, which is always going to give a defense a nice floor. So I do expect the same from this pass rush, especially with Darius Leonard back and playing. So it's a decent floor game with a chance for a nice ceiling game if you can convert one of those turnovers from Flacco into 6.
Yeah. All right, I got the Steelers. Have the Steelers. Don't really have anything else to say about that. I don't have the percentage written down. Skipped ahead.
That's fine.
Either way, Steelers defense has been absolutely incredible. Mason Rudolph went down. They felt like they really, I think they had the situation where they really had to step up, and they did. Now that Rudolph is back, I don't see them taking a step back. I think they know the level that they can play at now, especially being a younger defense. And they get a Dolphins team that defenses have just absolutely steamrolled. So, given the recent hot streak of the Steelers and Miami they're Miami, you're going to start them. I don't think there's much more analysis that needs to be made there.
Speaking of quarterbacks who likes to throw interceptions.
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Both
right.
of them.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the You Call It and wrap the show up. DFS pick and our betting calls.
You Call It.
All right, looking at You Call It this week. You got Ty Johnson, 5,200 on FanDuel. You talked about him earlier. Anything else to add there?
Nope. He's just going to be a very popular play in both cash and tournament games, so do expect high ownership. But that's to be expected when you get a low-cost running back who's likely to get 15 to 18-plus touches.
Yep. All right, I'm looking at DK Metcalf. He's got a touchdown or over 50 yards the last 3 weeks. It's a terrible Falcons pass defense. Talked about Tyler Lockett earlier in the show, how much we liked him. DK Metcalf's another guy I like to break off a big play or two and give you some starting value. I believe he was 5,000 on DraftKings. So, in the cheaper realm there against Atlanta. All right, looking at game, you got the Chargers +4 against the Bears. I like this call.
Before we get to that, another question. Thank you guys for the question, Jimmy Navarro.
We should record later on Wednesdays more often.
Right. Jimmy, another long-time listener, asked a bunch of questions, so we appreciate you, bro, for coming back. His question, should I trade Keenan Allen and Jared Goff for Josh Allen and Julian Edelman? Full PPR. He has DeAndre Hopkins and Sam Darnold on the bench.
I would say no. And my kind of reason being for that is that Josh Allen is an interesting case for fantasy most of the time because he's the type that will give you some okay weeks, maybe a big week here and there, and completely kill you in other weeks. Whereas Jared Goff, I know he had a bad week a couple weeks back and is usually pretty mad, but at least there's some consistency and you know what to expect when you place him out there. And Allen and Edelman, I believe, is just kind of a tick for tack trade to where you're not really moving the needle a whole lot right now. Both guys have the ability to put up big numbers. I think Allen more so than Edelman. at this stage in the way those two teams settle out. But both are right now kind of in a position where performances have been a little bit, shall we say, lackluster. So I'm more on the Goff and Edelman's, or the Goff and Allen side.
Yeah, so I would agree. I keep Keenan Allen and Jared Goff. Goff and Josh Allen are effectively the same quarterback that just gets their points a little bit differently. Josh Allen has a higher floor because of the rushing upside. Goff can get you more, I guess he could, in theory, have a higher ceiling just because of what the offense can put out. Both have pretty difficult matchups towards the end of the stretch, though. Rams, they're in the playoffs. Seattle, home against Seattle, at Dallas, at San Francisco, Buffalo, home against the Ravens week 14, at Pittsburgh, at New England. I hate both schedules. Both are just streaming quarterbacks. So basically, you're looking at Keenan Allen for Julian Edelman. Full point PPR, it does make things a little bit interesting because Edelman's likely has, I think, maybe a higher floor just given what we've seen from Allen the last couple of weeks with the with newly integrated Hunter Henry back from his injury. But Allen still has a higher upside, just given the Chargers are more than likely going to be in shootouts than the Patriots. So I would take Keenan Allen as a number 2 to DeAndre Hopkins over Edelman as a number 2.
Yeah, I'm with you.
All right. Moving on to the last part here. Chargers +4 on the Bears. This is per the I think ESPN Plus insider pick trading. Basically, it's this. I think the Bears are going to win this game. I don't think it. Honestly, I think both teams can win this game. I don't think either team's going to win this game by more than 3 points. You get a 4-point cushion with the Chargers, which makes things even better. The consistency of both offenses have not been there. The defenses, the Chargers are really banged up. The Bears, with their offense struggling, their defense gets tired later on in the game. You see that almost every year when you get a bad offense and a good defense. Both teams haven't really been able to take advantage of that. So I expect this to be a low-scoring game. The over-under is 41, so it just makes it even better to take. I mean, normally I would take the home team in this situation, but with them favored by more than 3, it just seemed more like a Chargers play.
Yep, I could agree with that. I mean, it's a game that I see going either way. So, I do like the Bears a little bit more. Hence my hate for Phillip Rivers this week.
With the Bears I agree.
Being at home. So, I do think that the Chargers could cover that +4. Though I think it could be 3 points or less easily.
Yeah.
All right. For me, I'm taking the under of 49.5 for the Lions and Giants. Basically, the reason being is this. The Giants have been over 24 points, which would be basically half of what you need to cover that. Just once this season, they've been under 25 different times. Lions have been scoring a decent amount of points, but the Lions have been scoring a decent amount of points in close games. I think that they've had one game that was decided by more than a touchdown. So I expect this game to be a little bit different. I expect that this is a pretty easy task for the Lions, but it's not a game that's held close. The Giants don't put up their half of that point total, and that the Lions don't have to try to put up and make up for that difference in this game, like they have in other games where it's more so been a more of a shootout type of game. So I'm taking the under on this one.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions score 40 points. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants score less than 10. Daniel Jones has been bad since his breakout game against the Bucs.
Which was his first game against the Bucs where no defense was actually prepared for him.
Yeah, exactly. And it was during comeback mode. And the Lions, while have made some trades, their defense is banged up. They're at home. Patricia is a good defensive coach. I expect them to get up early and ride the running game later on.
Yep, I'm with you there. All right, that's all we got for Wednesday. Be sure to tune in Sunday.
I'm off Sunday. I'm off this weekend. So
okay, beautiful.
You may get both of us Sunday.
You might get both of us Sunday. You might get one of us. I will be doing a brew day on Sunday with Brent. So I got to be out there at like 10 a.m. So we'll figure it out. There will be one of us here on Sunday though. Likely Dan, maybe both. We'll see how that ends up. But yeah, we will catch you then. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always on YouTube, thank you for the questions. Beerfield Fantasy Football on YouTube. Please absolutely subscribe there, like, hit the notification icon. If you like the podcast, we love the questions. It breaks up the monotony, gives us some discussion points. Absolutely love answering those for you guys. I am at Hot BFF on Twitter with 2 P's. He's at 30 BFF on Twitter with 2 F's. And I don't got anything else for you. Sunday around 11 a.m. for live stream. Dan, anything else to say?
I am just finalizing the trade offers. I did not forget.
All right.
See you guys Sunday.
Beautiful. I will accept those as we hop off the air, the proverbial air here anyway. All right. Thanks. Oh, man. You know what I didn't do? This is kind of funny for YouTube. Here you go, guys. You can see our faces now.
Oh, you left it. You left the.
I left the logo up the entire time.
Wow. Well, here's the trophy. For those of you that have.
Yeah.
Jesus. That was such. All right, guys. We got to do this all over again.
No, we don't have to do this all over again.
I'm kidding.
Conversations don't mean you have to see us. 90% of the episode is us talking. The other little bit is showing off a trophy. So not a whole lot you missed there. Skip to the end if you want to see our faces. This is the end, though. So, yep, we're here. By the way, since you couldn't read the beers on screen, one more shout out to them. Not even going to try to pronounce the name Belgian Saison, which is a collab with Megadeth, and Dankwood from Founders, which is aged for over a year. So, yeah.
See you guys.
And now I'm going to throw an outro logo up after we started an intro logo for the entire thing. All right. Wait.
That was fun.
I didn't actually kill the episode yet.